Tonight I will be talking about driving under the influence of alcohol. My opponent has stated that the current penalties for the crime of driving under the influence of alcohol are inadequate. I strongly disagree. I believe that the current penalties for the crime of driving under the influence of alcohol are adequate enough. Before examining the three claims he presented, I'd like to take a look at why adding new bills or laws wouldn't still prevent second-time offenders nor put a stop to drunk driving. In California, law enforcement made 203,866 DUI arrests in 2007, averaging out to 588 DUI arrests every day. Of those arrested, 45,149 were repeat offenders. In the year 2008, law enforcement made 330,506 DUI arrests, and out of those arrested, 53,223 were repeat offenders. In this current year, 2009, Chuck Hurley, Chief Executive Officer of MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, said that so far we've been having 410,189 DUI arrests, and out of those arrested, 55,589 have been repeat offenders. By looking at these statistics, we can get to the conclusion where these second offenders keep repeating the same offense over and over again, no matter how many times they get arrested or no matter how many stricter laws the government makes. It can even get to the extreme where this person can be arrested for their 10 DUI, and for this individual it could mean nothing due to the lack of their common sense. According to a study by the state agency done by Jerry Taylor, states that by simply throwing people in prison or suspending their license doesn't stop people from drinking and driving. Now let's take a closer look at my opponent's claims. First, my opponent said that the first offense penalty for driving under the influence of alcohol is to relax. In contrast, I would argue that the first offense penalty for driving under the influence of alcohol is more than enough. He states that on average, first-time offenders receive a fine, prison time, and license suspension. He also said that some states even require DUI program completion. The thing with this DUI program completion is that this is in every state. Yet, Councilman Dennis Zine from the LAPD argues that if you are charged with the first penalty, you can lose your driver's license up to 1 year, be on probation for at least 1 year with monthly reporting, do community service up to 50 hours, have a fine up to $2,000, completion of a substance abuse course conducted by the DUI program, car insurance will go up, confined to prison up to 6 months, impounding of car for 10 days, plus have installation of ignition interlock system in your car. Now with this said, is this penalty still to relax? To suspend these individuals' driver's license can be very devastating for their morals, self-worth, and ultimate happiness. How are we going to allow these individuals from going back and forth to their work or to school? This is the reason why I strongly disagree with my opponent's first claim, because this penalty is already strict enough. Why add more to it? His second claim was the first offense penalty allows first-time offenders to repeat the offenses. My opponent used the example of Superior Interlock Services. He said there's an average of 1,500,000 people arrested for drunk driving each year. I would have to admit that I seem a little bit confused on this information given by my opponent due to the fact that I really didn't know exactly what he was talking about, if around the world or just here in the United States. My opponent's third claim was that new bills were proposed to stop repeat drunk driving offenses. He used the example of Bill 91 created by Assemblyman Mark Fuhrer of LA, and how this bill would make mandatory the installation of an ignition interlock device. This device would make the driver blow into a tube that measures the BAC, or the car will not start. I definitely disagree with my opponent's final claim for two reasons. Number one, he says that new bills were proposed to stop repeat drunk driving offenses, but in reality, he only talks about one bill, which is Bill 91. Number two, the reason why I don't agree with him is because this doesn't stop the individual from getting behind the wheel with another car that he might own or that he might get from a friend or someone else. Bill 91 has its own laws that instead of helping out the community, it does the opposite. According to the IDD, it's less accurate than the breathalyzer used by police, causes distractions, too costly to maintain, and most importantly, doesn't keep the person from driving another car. One major flaw of the IDD is that items such as mouthwash can cause the vehicle not to start. Mouthwashes that most people use in the morning contain alcohol. And it is obvious to me that current penalties for the crime of driving under the influence of alcohol are adequate already. The penalties that one individual receives on the first offense is too cruel, and as more laws keep coming out, it just keeps making it more and more tough. It's like taking away the individual's rights to liberty and freedom in this country, and as more strict laws keep coming out, it's still not going to prevent from people drinking and driving.
Right, the claims are labeled clearly. I thought you had a good counterclaim from the beginning. There's direct challenges or contradictory claims on a couple of the points. You do spend a lot of time early on, though, kind of recapping what the statistics are on the number of arrests versus the number who are second-time offenders. I think you can get through that a little bit quicker and get to the point that the notion is that these second-time offenders are going to offend regardless of what the penalty is. It's not going to change those things, and that it's not really possible to have penalties that would be significant enough to prevent this. That seems to be the argument being presented by Zine on that first point, where you're in essence saying, look, we've got all of these penalties for them. Denying them a license at all is going to be really problematic. It would be overly harsh. I mean, there are a few ways that you could keep people who repeat offend from driving, but most of them are probably not socially acceptable. You know, cutting off their hands or death penalty, something like that, that would happen. And as much as we want to avoid that kind of behavior, you know, there are limits to what we can do. And I think you've got a very good argument that says, look, we've got somebody who's convicted of drunk driving the first time, look at all the stuff that they have to go through. Look at the penalties they're subject to. Look at the fines that they have to pay. Would making the penalties more change their behavior? I do think you need a clearer argument on the notion that these are people who have particularly unique problems, the second and third time offenders, that pretty much there's not much anything law enforcement can do about them, that there's always going to be a way around it. They are habitual because they have some deep-seated problems, that the penalties work best for occasional offenders or people who slipped, but they don't really work for somebody who's, a flaming alcoholic who doesn't give a damn about what happens to them. They're going to do whatever the hell they want, which is the argument that you make on the second point that says they'll just get behind the wheel of some other car that doesn't have this interlock system on it, and you're going to have the same kind of outcome. I thought the second point was nicely developed on that interlock argument, and you've got several criticisms of it that worked pretty well. Thank you.